Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions, and we are out again. We're not in a normal place, are we? Well, no. This is becoming a normal place now.
We're in the, as James referred, it's some sort of secret hideaway in my office building. Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to leave that there. It's a secret hideaway in London.
And the reason why we're once again in the secret hideaway is because we're once again not alone.
I thought you were going to say because we weren't let out last time.
Yeah, because we couldn't actually make our way out of here. No, we're not alone. We're joined by Jaega Wise from Wild Card Brewery. Jaega,
hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I say from Wild Card Brewery, but that's one of a huge list of things that you are now involved in, isn't it?
Just a few.
Is it still the main one? Is Wild Card still the thing that pays the bills, takes up all of the time?
Pays the bills, yeah, and it is like, for example, I do the most hours at the brewery, but yeah. I do a fair amount.
I'd say that's job number one then.
Yeah, it's 100% job number one. Yeah.
So as we've referenced Wild Card Brewery, we do have a beer from them in front of us.
We do indeed.
So let's say cheers, and I'll let people know what we got. Cheers and welcome.
Thank you. So this beer is a Blackcurrant and Apricot Smoothie Pale Ale. It has been done with the Skyline Project, which was a project pairing up 6 New York breweries and 6 London breweries. So it was really, really cool. They all flew over to the UK as part of the London Craft Beer Festival, and we got to meet them. It's all about swapping ideas, getting to know each other, getting to know each other's breweries. I'm hoping to fly out to New York next year as well, and maybe to do the same thing.
Oh,
I was going to say, was there a reciprocal
agreement? Well, we'll see if we can afford it. We'll see what the money's saying.
The same people. So this is done with Fifth Hammer. I mean, I'm not familiar with them at all.
I'm not. It's the first time I've heard of them.
Yeah, so it was actually the first time that I'd heard of them as well, when I started the project. But they sent over some beers, and the beers are just absolutely phenomenal. And I was just so super stoked and pleased to work with them. So Chris came over, we spent the whole day together, and we spent the evening together, and we drank a lot together. But it was superb.
Oh, excellent. I mean, so this comes in at 4.3%.
Okay, fairly low.
Yeah, and you two have both admitted that maybe you might have some sort of cold coming on. Do you reckon this will help? I mean, it's got lots of fruit in it.
It feels like it, yeah. It feels properly fruity.
It is fruity.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of it, with the whole project, we were given the pale ale category. So we had to brew, I think our top ABV was 4.5%, so it had to be kind of on the lower end.
Oh, so there were markers, there were boundaries.
There were boundaries. Whereas Hackney Brewery, as part of the project, did a stout, like a coffee stout, that I think it ended up being like 14.5% or something silly.
Blimey. Steve, make mental note.
Yeah.
Hackney Brewery needs coming soon.
They've still got some of that beer available.
Yeah, they do. It's absolutely superb beer, absolutely superb. And just generally, every beer in the Skyline project really was quite something. So I think if you can get hold of it, you really should try it.
Definitely worth it.
It's definitely worth
it. Were they all in cans as well?
Everything was in 440ml cans. But it's really nice just to see the London breweries kind of performing a bit more. Do you know what I mean? It's quite nice to see it.
Because obviously we've had various other collaborations in the past, but a lot of them seem to be outside of London over the last couple of years, haven't they?
Well, there's been, the first series as such was the Rainbow project, which is still going, and it's kind of into its second iteration of that now, with a new set of breweries involved in that, and then you've got the Northern Powerhouse series,
which they now seem to be passing the baton from one northern brewery to another one, don't they? It seems to be a bit of a rolling thing every year, so it's quite good to see the London side doing a bit as well.
Yeah, exactly, because I mean, the beers that are coming out from here, like from London, are really, really superb. So, and it's quite nice to shine a spotlight on it.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you think, Steve? I mean, you've actually drunk more than I have so far.
It's I think it's that fruitiness that's really working for me, actually.
Any alcohol?
None whatsoever in that. It's
it tastes like alcoholic Ribena, doesn't it?
Yes.
Minus a lot of the alcohol, to be
fair. Yeah. That's what I imagine. If you'd taken kind of the dilutable Ribena and mixed it with cider or something, you probably could have come up with something like this.
You know, before we recorded, we poured the beer, and I did say it reminds me of Cowpole in the look.
Yeah, because it's dark red, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that surprised me when it first started coming out. I was like, oh, I didn't expect it to be quite so full on blackcurrant.
And actually, it looks almost thicker than it is.
Yeah.
You know, when a smoothie
it's got a decent mouthfeel for it.
It's got a decent mouthfeel, but it's not.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone too far.
Yeah, and that was partly because I wanted to make something that was pintable with this particular beer. So I wanted someone to be able to. So there are tart elements to it, but it's not as sour.
No.
So you could drink this. I wanted something you could drink in quantity because I knew the rest of the project was going to be like really intense, quite zoomed in beers. And the category we were given was the pale ale category. So even though it's physically purple, it's not a pale ale, but it's a pale base, if that makes sense. So
what,
pale ale is the base
pale
recipe.
malts.
Yes.
And the percentage would fit into a pale ale
exactly,
percentage as well.
And you could probably drink it. You could probably order a pint of it, and you'd be fine.
I like the use of the word pintable. I don't think anyone's ever done that on the show before.
I like that. Yeah.
Can we make a note on the show notes? Try and fit that on every future show. No, it has got that, and it also, I mean, we're obviously trying it now as we sort of, you know, after the clocks have gone back, so it's a little bit of a dip. But maybe a couple of months ago, during a bit of a warm day,
completely
outside,
refreshing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, it'd be one of those beers. We spoke about my beer club earlier, and it's the kind of beer I always try to present to the beer club every now and again.
Yeah.
Because I always get
Freaks them
that.
out.
Well, yeah, because I get that. I don't like beer.
Yeah.
No, you just haven't. You haven't tried enough of the right kind of beers, or you haven't enough variety. Turn up with this one. I don't think it smacks of beer.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
No.
It is a beer like this is very much. It breaks boundaries in terms of what is beer and what is not beer and what is. So you can tempt a lot of different kind of drinkers. A lot of people that say, "Oh, I only like fruit cider," or "I only like this," and like this. You present them with something like this, and it kind of breaks down barriers a little bit.
Oh, it's a great start, and thank you for bringing it along.
No problem.
Absolutely, thank you.
No problem.
So this is obviously from your main day job at the Wild Card Brewery. Avid listeners that have been with us for a few years will remember that you did appear way back in the early days of the Beer O'Clock Show, when I think at the time you had 3 or 4 core beers, all in 330ml bottles. And obviously since then the brewery's grown, you've expanded. Do you want to just talk us through the journey of Wild Card Brewery from kind of where you were at the beginnings to where you are now?
Yeah, so we are 7 years in now. Which is interesting. And you may have noticed we've gone into can, so we don't sell any of the bottles anymore. We were able to get our own canning line this year, which is a really big deal for us. We literally installed a new brewery 2 weeks ago. So just preparing for Christmas, just doing more and more and more.
So no bottles at all now?
No bottles at all. So the only bottles we make will be hand bottled, like probably champagne bottles.
So proper specials.
So my barrel aging stuff that I've got coming
that's
up.
It.
So that's the only bottling.
So 440 cans.
330 cans.
330 cans.
Yeah.
Keg.
Do
you still do cask?
I dabble from time to
time.
I dabble from time to time. So it depends on what's going on. We were really struggling. Basically, the journey of Wildcard has been us continuously struggling with capacity. That's basically it. Which it sounds like a luxurious position to be in, but it can be quite stressful. But we're in a position now, hopefully, where we can produce some volume.
So when you say struggling with capacity, I mean that presumably every time you got to a point where you couldn't make enough to satisfy the demand that people wanted.
Yes. So it's like
it's a good problem.
It's a good problem, but things just got kind of stupid. So we were supplying a supermarket on a 6-barrel plant. That's just idiotic. You know what I mean? It's just, so we just got way beyond what any brewery would deem acceptable. But it's just it's the way we are, and it's the way we've always been. We've always kind of pushed it to the very limit. And we don't have the excess that a lot of other breweries kind of have like money wise.
Right.
Like, we never have.
You're still Walthamstow based.
We're still Walthamstow, yeah.
So that is still home.
But yeah, Walthamstow, as in we couldn't leave Walthamstow even if we tried. So we've now got 2 sites. We've got the Ravenswood sites, which people probably know it as, which is now the Barrel Store. That's where our barrel aging project is taking place. And then we've got the new site, which is the Lockwood site, which is near Black Horse Lane in Walthamstow.
Right.
So that is where the actual brewery is, and there's also a tap room there as well. So we've got 2 tap rooms.
You've got 2 tap rooms.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. That'd be, I have to admit, I hadn't quite picked up there was a second tap room there as well.
Yes, there is, yeah.
And how are both tap rooms doing?
The Barrel Store is insane. So that's one of the main reasons why we moved out of that site, was because the tap room is really successful, and a brewery gets in the way
of the tap room.
Of people. right? That's one of the main reasons why we had to move it. And it was that, and for those who have physically visited the brewery, the water supply there is just ridiculous, because it's in an old ammunitions factory, and another brewery moved in down the road, on the same estate, so a couple of doors down. So whenever they open their taps, my water would half. So imagine that, but with the brewery who's getting the water first. So there were times when we were trying to double brew, and you'd open the taps and nothing would come out.
It sounds almost like that thing on holiday.
Bloody horrible.
Your towels on the sun lounges first. You're like coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning just to get the taps on.
But yeah, it got to the stage where the we didn't have enough water, physically water. The drainage was like World War II standards. We just didn't have what we needed on the site, but it was making a great tap room. So
tap room's still there.
Tap room's still there.
Can people see the barrel? Because I haven't. So can they see the barrels?
They can see the barrels. We've got pizza there now. We've got 12 taps of beer. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Everyone likes to see a bit of barrels when they're drinking beer, don't they? Trying to imagine what's going on in the barrels, what's coming out next.
It's pretty good.
And the new tap room?
Yeah, the new tap room
well
at Lockwood.
as well?
That's doing really well. That one is open Fridays and Saturdays, which is really good. It's where I spend a lot of my time. It's hard to contextualise when you're there constantly, but yeah, it's all going well. It's all going fine.
Brilliant,
excellent. So, in addition to that, you don't just brew at Wild Card Brewery. You have got quite the CV that comes with you as well. So, singer in a band? Is that still a thing?
It is still a thing. It's really frustrating for me. My drummer moved to Greece. So I was in this really cool band called Hell and Hope, and the drummer, who is Greek, got a really good job offer in Greece. So I am technically on paper in between bands, but if anyone out there wants to have me singing on their tracks, I am available. Yeah, so it's a cause of frustration at the moment, to be honest.
Okay.
So let's not talk about that.
Fair
let's
enough.
move on.
Yeah. TV presenter?
Yeah.
Radio presenter?
Yeah.
As well. And
so how did that come about?
Honestly, I have no idea. So it's just I just kept getting asked about it. I just kept getting asked, will you appear on this show? And it got to the stage where I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I kind of need some representation to kind of help me a little bit. And then I got an agent, and then it just kind of happened from there. And then it just kind of more and more kept happening.
Because
I just kept saying,
it's not a beer show either, is it? It's the wine show that your TV centre on.
Yeah, so that's one of one of them. So on that particular show, I'm a beer expert on that particular show. But it came about actually through just science and engineering. So there was a show I did for the History Channel that was on ancient weapons, where I had to just talk about how to make gunpowder, how to make explosives and that sort of stuff.
That's your academia background.
Yeah, just academia.
Yeah.
And just saying, and when we were shooting the episode, I had a director that was very kind to me. He knew it was my first shoot, and he was quite gentle with me. And he said, we need someone to talk about pumps. And I was like, I know how a pump works. And he was like, okay. And he's like, we need someone to talk about Archimedes' screw. And I was like, I know how that works. And he said, okay. And then I ended up being in like 8 out of the 10 episodes, which was really good. It's kind of crazy.
So
but
what were the other 2 episodes that you didn't know about, Jaega? What were you rubbish at? 8 out of 10.
it's kind of crazy. Even though of all the beer stuff and everything that goes on, I get the most messages from around the world about that show.
Really?
about that engineering show.
I think that's actually quite cool. Really.
It's quite funny.
Well, you've always got something to fall back on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I was going to say, if the brewing doesn't work, which clearly that's not the case because it's everything's going great guns, you've always got that background to fall back on, haven't you?
Yeah. And I suppose, and that's the whole point of it's just a backbone, isn't it? Which is.
I presume you must enjoy doing it. Being the beer expert on the wine show, so does that take up a great deal of your time?
No, honestly, no. So it's like I'm quite loud on social media. Like I say, oh, I'm up to this and I'm up to that. Like the longest shoot for the wine show is like 6 days in Japan. Like it's not a huge amount of time. It's just something that looks like you're there for longer than you are. Just everything is very tight and it's very condensed. And you just shoot continuously. Not shoot continuously. That's not true. You shoot in the morning, you shoot in the afternoon, you shoot in the evening, but it's all over very quickly. So it may feel like you're away for a bit longer.
But then because when you see the shows,
when you see the show, and then there's always when you're about to shoot the show, you'll talk about it, and then when you shoot the show, you'll talk about it some more. Then you come back, you talk about it some more, and then when it airs, you'll talk about it some more.
Right.
It's more that kind of thing.
In addition to everything else that you do, you're also a regional representative for SIBA as well. So is that the London region or London South East, or what area do you cover?
I chair the South East of the UK. So it does include London. It also includes Kent, it includes Brighton, the southeast of the UK, generally, basically.
It's quite a fair chunk then.
It's a fair chunk. It's a fair chunk, and I've been chairing that since when was that? About April, May time this year. So we're trying to make the southeast the best region in the UK. That's the.
You've got to aim for something.
That's the
you?
goal, and that's the mantra. One of the first things we're doing is we are trying to improve the standing of our judging and our competitions, and put keg beer on the agenda. Obviously, in the southeast of the UK, there's a lot of keg beer down here, and it's probably not represented with the trade body as it should be. So what we're trying to do is to put it on the map. So we're having a really big keg beer competition, and the goal that we've set ourselves is world standard. Like we don't want anything less. We want it to be one of the best competitions in the world. And as a consequence of that, it means we're going to have about 150, 160 kegs. So we're going to have a festival off the back of that in February, between the 13th and 15th of February in King's Cross. And it's going to be called Love Beer London, because it's Valentine's Day weekend.
And my birthday.
Yeah.
So if you want to come to a festival on your birthday,
It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, isn't it?
It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we're working hard.
Despite the name, that will be representative of the entire southeast region that you represent.
So what's happening is the SIBA Southeast is joining forces with the LBA, the London Brewers Alliance, and we're hosting it together. And it is, I don't know if you know Craft Beer Cares at all. Mm-hmm. So Craft Beer Cares are handling the festival side of it. So the whole thing's going to be 100% for charity as well. So
you're going to hold it where Green Man hold their festival in the summer behind King's Cross?
Actually, really close to there. It's in an event space that belongs to Two Tribes Brewery. It's really close to their. Okay. It's really close to their tap room, but it's really close to Cold Drops Yard. Yeah, it's really close to there. But that's going to be releasing late this week, early next week. We're going to start telling people about it.
Okay, so
you guys are the first.
An exclusive.
Exclusive. You guys are the first. Yeah.
No, I mean, it does sound quite good. It's a good idea, and you're right about the keg, aren't you? Because generally it tends to be the cask beers, isn't it? They get judged and stuff. I like the aims. How did it come about doing it with LBA then?
It's been a lot of forging ties and making friends. So because obviously I brew in London, I'm already part of the LBA. I already go. I know everyone. And we cover a really similar region remit, so why would we not band together and pool our resources and do something really awesome for everyone.
That makes
So
perfect sense.
it's taken a fair amount of give and take on everyone's part, but there's been some compromises made in order for everyone to get along. But I think it shows. Hopefully, we're going to show what we can do when we all work together to achieve kind of one big thing.
I think it's a cracking idea.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's an easy location to get to.
It's an easy location to get to.
Go into it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one of the things that I really enjoy about Seabird beer festivals and about Cahsmere beer festivals specifically is how accessible they are in terms of like pricing and that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Like it's not really expensive. So that's kind of what we wanted to do, is not do something that's like £50-60 a ticket. We wanted to do something like the tickets cost £12 and you get a free glass with that in the middle of central London. You know what I mean? So we wanted something that's really super accessible.
Yeah. And that's what they, like I said, that's what, I mean, GBBF is 10 to 12 quid, a couple of quid off if you're a member.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's very comparable, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So those like really positive things about this festivals, we really wanted to bring that, but put that to keg. And I've challenged all the breweries at the last meeting. We want to see them brew their best, brew their finest beer that they've ever made. They're going to do collaborations, work together. We want to have a really exciting festival.
That's really good. I finished the beer, by the way.
I know.
Oh.
Does that mean we've been talking too much?
Yes. Although I felt like I've been talking as well.
It's very smooth and drinkable. You didn't even notice.
Drinkable. She only bought 2 cans as well.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on it?
Well, superbly drinkable. I didn't really get the apricot myself, but the black is it blackberry or blackcurrant?
It's the blackcurrant. It's quite a powerful. It's quite an overwhelming.
It's quite dominant, isn't it?
It's really dominant. It's really dominant. But I quite like that.
I mean, maybe the apricot. I would notice the apricot not being there. You know, again, when you're cooking, if you don't add something, you notice it hasn't been added.
Yeah.
So maybe the apricot is still adding something that we're actually noticing per se. But going back to your earlier phrase of pintable, I could do a pint or two of that.
Absolutely, I think I'd agree.
Has it got the residue sugar?
No, it's and like you say, the tartness is there. There's a hint of tartness, but it's not overpowering. I'm not the world's biggest fan of sour beers. I'm really not.
Sour. If it's too sharp for you,
it's going to struggle with the rest of tonight. But that's I can drink that and I can enjoy that, and it's not making me pull a face.
So that's a thumbs up.
Yeah,
that's
take
good.
that as a compliment.
Steve hasn't pulled a face.
Yeah. The thing is, you know what? I'm really pleased with the reaction to it, because I was quite. You're always a bit scared especially when you're doing a project of that caliber amongst brewers of that caliber. So there's like Pressure Drop and Evil Twin and what have you, and Hackney and all these amazing breweries all doing a project. So it's really nice that it's been like reviewed really well and received really well by everyone. So I'm really quite proud.
Will you do it again though? As in the same beer? Can you now brew it again at some point in the future?
I can brew anything we want.
How do those rules work? Because it was obviously done as a collaboration.
Yeah.
Can you both brew it again in your own breweries? If next summer someone says, "Look, this is a great summer beer. Why can't we have it again?" Yeah,
it's one of those things where 2 breweries could brew exactly the same thing and it would taste different in both breweries. So yeah, I mean, I would have no qualms about brewing it again.
Because this initial release of it would have only been available in the box sets.
This would have been available in the box sets, and we did make some keg.
So that's the only way people are going to have a chance to try this was if they bought a box or happened to be in a bar and it was on keg.
Or went to the launch or what have you. Or came to any of the Wild Card tap rooms or any of the tap rooms in London. So I think Pressure Drop had it on at the Experiment, and Gypsy Hill had it on in their place. So
okay, so people who were part of the project, you all had each other's beers.
But if you was to bring it back, assuming you'd be able to then do it a bit more widely available, so to anybody that could just buy it. Exactly. So I mean,
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, I am still enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm going to get the next lot of cans out while you start the next bit, Steve.
Yeah, okay. Well, Obviously, you're with us for the evening, so,
Yes,
you're going to jump in and out of some bits that we've got, and we've got, as we always do, and we've got guest hosts, we've got some questions for you from our listeners as well, a little bit later on. But we're just going to jump into the news now, just a few things to look at this week. So first up, following on from the conversation we had on the last show with James from Seba about the Seba Michelin event, which you were involved in, as you sent some beers in for that, didn't you?
Yes, we were. So it wasn't something that I was particularly even a part of, like myself. So it was we just applied, and the beers got chosen. In fact, our passion fruit Gose, which we got later, was chosen as a beer, which it's pretty cool to be chosen to be presented to a Michelin-starred restaurant. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
As a result of that event, there seems to have been some success, because there was a tweet last week from Neil Walker, who I believe is press secretary for Seba.
Or communications guy, it's one of the two, isn't it?
PR man.
Basically, a chef had got in touch with one of the breweries that were involved, and is now looking to use their beers as part of a recipe that they're going to put forward to the Great British Menu, which will be on the television in spring. Cool, so I followed up with Neil and asked for some more details, and it turns out that the brewery involved is Abbeydale in Sheffield. And
who incidentally we are featuring a beer from them later.
We are covering a beer from them tonight.
This stuff, Steve.
I know. Sometimes the planning just works.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So they had submitted Raisins to Be Fearful, which was the beer that they submitted to the event, and that was the beer that got them the attention of the chef from the restaurant in Sheffield. And he's going to be using one of their beers called Heathen, which is, I think it's a straight up pale ale. And he's going to be using that as part of this dish in the Great British Menu.
Oh, that's really cool.
Well, there's a measure of success straight away for the event.
Yeah, I mean that's great to hear, and that's great that it's been so quick as well, because that event was only 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now.
Yeah, because it was before we recorded with James 2 weeks ago, so slightly before that, wasn't it? So yeah, 3.5 weeks.
Yeah,
that's really cool. That's really cool, because it's hard to get beer in front of these people. It's not easy. So to have a situation where
well, you've got
you
beer
can
in
put
front
it
of
in the
them
noses, and you got.
And they're taking it. Someone's taking it up as well.
Yeah, that's a yay success.
I think that's
hopefully the first of many.
Hopefully.
Next up was again just a brief one. Now this was from the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking. Published a new report this year showing that in 34 of the 36 countries where data is available, the statistics on drink driving have dropped. So instances have reduced in those countries across the world. So this is data that's gathered from a number of countries across the world. It's put into a report, and it shows the impact of drink responsibly campaigns, those sorts of things. So
that can only be a plus.
That is, isn't it?
That can only ever be a plus.
I've not really got much else to say about that. There's a huge report that goes along with that. I'll put a link in the show notes if people want to read the report. It's there for people to read. But I think the headline says it all.
Yes,
is that it's a reducing thing.
Definitely, that's great.
Yeah. More local news, and I don't know why we'd be mentioning this. It's not like we know the guy that works for them. East London Brewery have completed a new installation of a new plant. They've got a new head brewer, they're rebranding, and they've launched East End Lager.
So they're based just down the road from me, East London Brewery, and I absolutely love them. I love their beers.
Yeah.
I really do. So it's really nice. It's really nice. The can looks awesome. The can looks really awesome.
Yeah, so they're using local photography on their cans, so images of local landmarks are being used on their cans with
the labelling when they released it did look really cool, actually.
I think they've moved away from the ELB branding as well, haven't they, to simply now say East London Brewing.
But I mean the ELB's done them well. I mean are they similar sort of timing to you?
Yeah, really similar.
They've been around a similar sort of time. So they've been at the Brewers Market at Spitalfields for quite some time, which is when I first came about them. So they were due for maybe a little bit of a refresh and a change. So I think that's cracking.
Yeah. Next thing they're looking at is opening a tap room as well, which
really
would be great for them as well. Yeah.
Hot stuff. That's hot information.
Yeah.
Oh, that is exclusive for you.
Exclusive for me.
How close to you are they?
So to my house, they're like
To the
they're like
brewery.
a 7-minute walk from my house.
Yeah.
To the
Like
brewery,
a 7-minute walk.
they're like a 7. To be fair, to the brewery, they were probably one of my closest neighbours when we were at the Shernall Street, so the barrel store site. But they probably were our closest brewery.
Were they the ones stealing all your water?
But then
No. This is before Pillars moved in, so before them, they were our closest neighbour.
that's quite cool because then you're going to start developing a few spots in the same area.
Yeah.
So it becomes a part of a destination area rather than one or two destination places,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think you mentioned that recently on Twitter, didn't you?
Yeah,
About the Walthamstow Beer Mile. Is potentially
It's
happening.
coming, it's coming,
Yeah.
it's coming, it's happening.
So
It's
anyway,
happening.
as listeners may have heard, I have cracked open our second beer. So perhaps you should probably introduce this, Jaega. You know what we've got.
Yeah, so this is our Cashmere Ipa. It is a beer made with a hop called Cashmere. Absolutely bloody stunning hop. And for us, this is a collaboration we did with Brewdog as part of their Collab Fest. And for us, it was a chance to show off a bit and to and flex our muscles a little bit and share what we could do. So first, it's our biggest kind of hoppy beer. We went up to 21 grams per litre in terms of hop, which is quite high. So really quite pretty.
I mean, Cashmere's not a hop I'm overly.
I don't think
familiar
I've
with.
come across it before. Is it? Did you say it's fairly new? As a
It's
hop?
to be honest with you, I'd never used it before, apart from in this beer. What I try and do, I try and contract like a little bit of really weird, hard to get hold of stuff, and this was one of them.
This was one of them.
It's really quite. I'm really quite pleased with it.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I mean, the first thing I say is the nose on it was there the minute you opened the can
You could smell the fruit,
and started
can't you?
pouring. Big orange juice nose on that.
That's still quite bitter.
No.
I'm getting bitterness on it.
I'm getting dryness on the finish, like a real pithy dryness.
So I was expecting,
right on the end
expecting
there.
much more sweetness there. But it's the aroma's absolutely delicious.
But
isn't
yeah,
it?
that is a stunning and
Yeah.
so this is single hopped.
No, it's not. It's not single hopped at all. So this is a. It's kind of a. It's interesting when you say bitter. Like it's kind of like fresh bitter rather than bitter.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It's almost like I was eating the rind of a fruit.
Yeah, like a rind of a fruit rather than like you know what I mean. So it's got in it Citra, it's got a hop called Ella in it, Cashmere, and I'm pretty it says on the can.
It does. I was wondering to see if you knew the
Mosaic.
fourth one.
Mosaic. Mate, it was me that did the final dry hopping on it. I bloody know the fourth. Fourth one. There's a lot of hops that went into this. But yeah, so again, I'm really quite pleased with it. It's a big, juicy, kind of cloudy IPA.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely cloudy / hazy. It's definitely got the orange aromas, but again, it hasn't got like that yeasty sugariness, which I feel that some of these kind of style of beers has sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It still feels it's been a complete brew, cooked all the way through, and come off at the right time.
That's in particular because of the yeast we chose to use with this beer. So I purposely didn't want it to end up finished too sweet. We wanted to retain a little bit of sweetness, but we have made it finish fairly dry comparatively. But what we were really working on was the thick, juicy mouthfeel. So I changed some of the water treatment in order to try and achieve that, to make it a little bit thicker. There is quite a lot of oats in it as well, but just to try and make it a little bit more silky smooth.
Oh, so you haven't relied purely on the addition of the oats to get the mouthful.
Oh, no,
You've
no.
done other stuff as well.
We went water chemistry hard on this beer. Like in terms of, it's a lesson in how much water treatment makes like a massive difference. So we went really hard on trying to improve that kind of, and trying to make it really kind of silky in the mouthfeel.
I would say which I
almost
guess
Cashmere-like.
which is where it's come from. But yeah, I think it's achieved.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was just surprised to see that it was only 5.8%.
Yeah.
As well, because I was expecting something a lot bigger for this, again, this sort of style. You normally expect something 6.5, 7 for this sort of style, but no, nice 5.8%, easily pintable.
But it still feels like we've got balance in here as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The flavours balance out beautifully.
Yeah, there's balance in here. You could definitely, although we've stepped up by 1.5% for the last beer, you wouldn't necessarily know you have.
Yeah.
I would say there's still definitely a lot of drinkability about this one. You could have a couple of pints of the first one, a couple of pints of the second one. You might notice it later on because you've suddenly jumped up to just below 6%. But I don't think you'd notice it when you're drinking it.
No, it's really, really drinkable.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really screams about this beer is that it's so well balanced. It's got that drinkability.
Yeah. Have you had
to go back.
Good feedback from it from the collaboration with the Brewdog bars?
Yeah, the feedback's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. Yeah.
Nice.
You know when you. I can't really complain about the feedback. I wouldn't have bought it today if the feedback hadn't been good.
You must be quite proud of this one.
We're pretty pleased.
Yeah.
We're pretty pleased.
I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, me too. Just while we're getting into that, one more news story this week, and this one came as quite a surprise, I think, to a lot of people when I think this came out late Friday afternoon, was the news that Burning Sky are canning their beers.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
Because didn't someone put out a Twitter poll just the day before, so I'm assuming they must have known.
I'm not sure, I don't think I saw
someone had done a question saying, who's going to put their beer in cans first, Burning Sky or Colonel?
Ah.
I don't think the Colonel will do it.
Well, no, I didn't think the Colonel would do it, but I was surprised to find that Burning Sky were
No, I'm kind of hoping the Colonel don't, because I've publicly said a number of times if the Colonel ever can their beers, I'm done. I'm
really?
done with
Why?
beer.
Explain to me.
I don't know, because I think there's something just that works with their bottles. It's just, I don't think it would have the same appeal in a can. I just don't think it would.
It depends on the branding, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
they do such, they do simplicity so beautifully.
Yeah, and that's why where I think I'm coming from. That simplicity of that brown label on a brown bottle. I don't think you can beat that.
And there's the whole issue of with the can design. There's a real 360 ability of a can. Like it has to look good from every angle. In a way, in a bottle, you can just kind of get away from a front design or like a back design. It would be a tricky one to work out if they were to go into.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it, but I have to admit, I'm surprised with Burning Sky.
I was surprised to read this. But basically, they're saying that first cans off the line will be in late November.
How exciting!
What they've done is they've opened a new building adjacent to the brewery where they're going to move all of their oak aging into that. Which has allowed them the space to put in a canning line. And so moving forward, all of their fresh pale ales, IPAs and seasonal saisons will be 440ml cans, but they'll still be putting the oak-aged beers out in the 750ml champagne bottles as well. So it's kind of catering for both markets.
Yeah, because some of their beers do lend themselves to being in the big 750 bottles.
Yeah, totally.
Either putting away or sharing.
Yeah.
So the split of the beers, the way they're doing it, sounds about right. But yeah, I mean, canning's obviously, as we're finding out tonight, with Wild Card recently doing their one, it's obviously it is still the way forward.
Oh,
no one's slowing up, are they?
No, cans are very much here to stay, aren't they? They're not going anywhere.
No, I don't think they're going anywhere. But I do think though, there are pros and cons to both packaging formats, and I don't really like it when people say, oh, cans are better than bottles, or bottles are better than can. I just don't think that's true. I think there are pros and cons to each packaging format. But then I probably would say that.
Yeah. All I would say is that going back to the earlier thing we were talking about the SIBA and the restaurants, I think cans in the restaurants, in those kind of Michelin star restaurants, is going to be a harder sell.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So you need, if you want to get beer in the door, then it's to get beer in the door, which I think a lot of the beers we looked at had been a lot of them were in 750 type bottles, which lends themselves to being wine presented in the same way. Mm-hmm. But even when I've been on holiday and stuff, when I go away, I still see more bottles elsewhere. If I take the States out of the equation, cans have definitely done States in here. You go to Europe, it's still more bottles for me.
Well, cans have a problem in high-end restaurants. So still, even within London, like, because obviously we made the change from bottle to can, so we know it very well. So it's not an easy sell trying to get someone to change from a bottle to a can. It may be exactly the same beer, it may be a better beer, within the can.
Yeah.
But
It's that
it's
sound
not
of
easy.
cracking open a beer, I imagine, is what partly,
I think part of it is they have to be able to sell it, especially in central London, that they sell a bottle of beer for £9-10 a bottle. And I've heard various theories as to why people think it doesn't work as well. And it could be as simple as like the physical height difference. So when you're looking at a plate, you've got your glassware here, you've got your food down here, just the can is physically smaller, like attempting to charge that much money for it.
in people's eyes.
In people's eyes, yeah. It's
that's the point.
It's a bit of a psychology.
Yeah. But then restaurants do very small plates of food and charge me a lot more for it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They seem to get away with that one often enough.
That's true. But I just think it's developing, and I think the more things we do, like this Michelin star event, and the more we talk to chefs, and the more we kind of beat down the doors. But it's definitely a huge area for growth, beer and food.
An untapped market.
An untapped market.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
While we're on the cans, obviously your cans have got beautiful, striking designs on them. Are they each done by a different artist? Is there a resident artist that you have? What's your approach to the artwork on your cans?
So the artwork for all of our bottle stuff, so all of our card stuff, was a fella called Valero Duval. And then when we went to Cannes, he's also done all the artwork for that as well. So it's mostly him, and then we've recently opened it out to other artists. We've kind of used other people here and there over the years for some specials. For example, the Cashmere is by a new artist. His name's James Hayes, and the tricky thing with working with different artists, especially on a brand, is you want people to be able to recognise it is you.
It's still the same brand.
But also, yeah, exactly. But also fitting somebody else's aesthetic into kind of your pigeonhole, which at times can work and at times doesn't work at all. So it can be quite tricky. So we've done things like keeping the back fairly uniform, even though the aesthetic is quite different. I think it is quite... People do kind of recognise it as
I mean, even looking at this, obviously, for the benefit of the body. So the back of the cans are very similar, typeface, laid out the same way. The front of the cans, although they are different pieces of art, do feel the same brand or part of the same stable, for want of a better phrase.
What's interesting is with the Skyline project in particular, we had a brief for that was quite tight comparatively, so it had to be very New York based. Whereas normally we wouldn't go so a little bit more abstract. You'll see the passion fruit Gose when it comes out in a minute. So that was very... We probably wouldn't normally go that specifically...
But if you were given...
It's got a bloody Statue of Liberty on it, for God's
sake.
sake.
Yeah, but it does smack of New York.
It does smack of New York. It had to smack of a particular thing. So... But yeah, so I mean, it's always a challenge doing that, and it's always a challenge getting that right. At Wild Card, Will is the one who just polices the artwork, and we really tightly control the artwork, and we're called Wild Card Brewery, for God's sakes. The amount of potential crap puns is just ridiculous. Like, you know what I mean? It's just insane. And the amount of people that come up to us and want to do this Joker event or this 7 of Clubs thing, and we just like puns are banned. Wild Card. Yeah. So it's just that we try and keep it classy.
Get rid of that last sheet of paper, Steve.
This is what the list of puns.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because actually we did have a question from one of our listeners about which was around the card-based beer names. And this was from Adam Johnson at maybe_not_a_fad. How long did the card-based beer names last, and what was the reason behind not continuing with them?
So we did that from the very beginning until last year, like late last year, really. So when we got the canning line in. And if you look at the way the designs, I haven't brought any core range with me today, but it's very similar. All we did was take the card themed and put it on a can. But as I said before, the front and the back kind of scenario doesn't work as well on a can. It's very 360. So we really had to think about how we were going to do that. But if you look at our IPA, it's the same picture as our old Queen of Diamonds, but the recipe has changed. It's a slightly higher ABV, but it's literally the same image. So it's just a manner of, the reason for the change was not so much it's not liking the old stuff, it was making the brand change to can.
Just updating the whole thing.
Updating the whole thing. Because we were very front and back.
Yeah.
We were literally card themed. So you had the front of the card and the back of a card, and it just didn't work on a can. It didn't look good.
Yeah, because like I say, it's 440, so you've got bigger height, and you're trying to use the whole lot.
No, it's shorter. So it's 330 ml.
Oh, 330 cans.
Yeah, it's 330 ml, so it's smaller. And obviously we're at the stage before when we didn't even have barcodes on our bottles. We didn't have like loads of information on our bottles that if we want to sell into goodness knows where now, there's some stuff that we literally have to have on our in terms of legally, the back of our package that maybe we wouldn't have considered before. And that's mainly things like barcodes.
Which does take up room, doesn't it?
It takes up room. It's like a really big, ugly barcode.
Yeah.
Like and you have to have it on there. And it's the kind of thing that we just would never have thought about before. When you start selling to like wholesalers and that sort of stuff, like you have to take those things into account.
Okay, so Wild Card branding is still there, but it's just been developed in
it's just been upgraded.
Evolved.
It's been modernised, and we still get loads of people that come up to us and say, "Oh, we really love the old branding," blah blah blah. But even when you look at the very beginning when we started, we used to hand tie all of our labels onto every bottle, and it's just this. As fun as it was, me doing that at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was so much fun. As fun as that, it's just not. You move on as the business changes, as needs change.
Yeah, and that's only to be expected. If you want, if you're the brewer, do we want you spending all your time tying labels to the bottles? Really? No.
It wouldn't be using your expertise elsewhere.
Yeah.
No.
So it's not the best way to do it.
No.
So it makes sense to me. And I don't, apart from, say, the aforementioned kernel, not many people's branding has stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean it's a real design challenge.
Yeah.
It really is, and I really take my hat off to all these brand agencies and what have you who do it. It's not easy. It's one of the things that we have not done is use a brand agency. We've done it in house, which is why we do look a little bit. I'm not going to use the word homemade, but I'm going to use the word as in. We're not as shiny, but I don't think we ever have been. It really works for us.
Yeah,
it works really well for us, and even having a label on a wraparound can, like, we like that look. We like the matte, quite clean look.
What are we thinking of the beer then? I mean, we're working our way through this quite nicely.
No, it hasn't changed. I mean, it is. I would hardly ever use the word silky. I would say super smooth. It's very easy to drink. Again, if this had been plonked down in front of me and I'd know other details, I would have gone in a bit nervous because I would have been expecting that more, maybe slightly thicker mouthfeel, a bit more sugary, maybe some of those yeasty esters as well. None of that. Yeah, it's got a lovely fruity aroma, still getting that nice balance, and has still got some of that sort of fresh fruit bitterness that you get with certain fruits. I'm really enjoying it. It's super drinkable again. Super pintable.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. There's not too much more I can add to that. It is really drinkable. I think what's great about it as well is that obviously you said you did this as part of the Brewdog Collab Fest, but you've been able to also go ahead and make it more widely available than that and put it into cans so that people don't necessarily have to go to their nearest Brewdog bar to try it. They can actually try it in the can as well.
Yeah, which despite how many Brewdogs there are, not always that convenient.
No. No, if you don't live near one, then they're not convenient, are they? And I'm assuming with this, so being involved in that event, do you just produce enough for the one bar that you've collaborated with, or do you have to produce enough for them to supply a number of their bars or all of their bars?
So we were asked to do 40 20 litre kegs, and you send it off in a pallet, and what we did volume-wise was literally just made kegs for them. And the rest of the beer, we put it into cans. We had our own branding done, and we put it into cans. I was beyond shocked by how far this beer travelled. So I was looking on Untappd, and the beer was in Reykjavik, the beer was in Helsinki, the beer was in Barcelona. It was in places that we've never had our beer, places they never would have heard of us, they never would have tried us before. And then all of a sudden you've got people like giving their opinions about your beer in far-flung places from across the world. Like, it was really quite special. Yeah. It was really quite special. I was quite proud and quite pleased. And then you have someone who's saying they absolutely love it in goodness knows where. And they would just never have had the opportunity to even hear your name.
And you wouldn't have had the opportunity to get it out there either. So
yeah, exactly, absolutely not. So
works perfectly well, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
No, it was. Honestly, it was a dream project because they basically said, we want to work with you. We're working with the Paddington Brewdog. We want to work with you on this project. They basically guaranteed they would buy the product at the end at a really good price. It allowed us to really go hard on the hops. And then the rest of it I canned. So we were able to sell the rest to our bottle shop customers. So it really... Projects don't always come around that easy, and it was an easy one.
And that's Brewdog initiated?
This is Brewdog initiated. So this is as part of, so they called us and they got an email, and then we said yeah.
See, the good side of Brewdog.
Yeah. You didn't get caught up in any of the suggested Untappd fixing that was going on over some of these beers, did you?
What?
Did you not see this?
I want to know about this, but I've not heard about it.
There were some people creating the accounts just to do one-off check-ins.
Yeah, but basically because Brewdog ran a thing where they run a league table of all of the beers
league table, yeah, I saw
based on the average Untappd score that beer's been getting.
Okay.
There were instances related to a number of breweries that were involved where a load of new Untappd accounts were created. Scored their beer 5, and then we're going in and doing every other beer at 1. And
that is scandalous.
That is
scandalous.
It's terrible. I don't think, to their credit, I don't think Brewdog have commented either way about it. But I know the guy that runs Untappd got involved because somebody tagged Untappd in, and he picked up on it, and he said, we have an algorithm that will take them scores out over time anyway, because it will pick up that they're peaks that shouldn't be there, their peaks and their low points that shouldn't be there. So our algorithm will actually remove those scores from the average score.
So they've had this before then, obviously.
Yes.
These sort of collaborations probably take place all the time elsewhere. They've got this algorithm in place, but seriously, why?
So they really cared about being on the top of this Brewdog list.
Yeah. But some breweries really wanted to win.
But then there is an Untappd skew. There is an Untappd skew. So you have to kind of be really... It's one of the things, like, I try and have a really healthy relationship with Untappd. It's really, really good to see how your beers are scoring instantly. It's good for instant feedback to hear what like real people think is really good. There is a massive skew towards... barrel-aged beers, sour beers, and like really strong stouts, and a really strong skew against lagers, wheat beers, and like lighter beers. And you just can't brew using like Untappd as a base.
Although I have changed my scoring system.
Go on.
That because we spoke about this a few times on the show, on and off air as well. But you are right, because that 14.5% barrel-aged stout gets 4.5, 4.75
every time.
Yeah, because it's been there, people have cared for it, loved it. It's only got 100 bottles, so it gets massive score straight away. And I was fairly much following the same thing. But then 2 days later, I might find a beer that I really like and have a session on it. And I said to myself, well, if I'm willing to carry on buying the same beer over and over again, how can it only be
a
3.75 or 4? It's ridiculous. So I've actually some of my session beers now get in the high 4s or a 5. If I'm willing to carry on, in my head, paying money for it, I'm assuming I like it. Therefore, it's worth a higher score. because it's sessionable, should not bring down the score.
Yeah, but it
Absolutely
absolutely does. And the thing is, and what's really fascinating, I really love Untappd. I think it's really good. A lot of people complain about it, how mean it is, and it's mean. Don't get me wrong; it can be really mean, and it can be cutting when you read something and what have you. However, largely, I think overall, it's quite positive. But that sounds cutthroat, as in.
I mean, that was a step too far.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. I was like, I can't believe that people are actually doing this.
I can believe it.
Ball ache of creating another account.
Yeah.
And then checking your beers in on that account just to get the scores up or down. Seems like hard work to me.
Too much like hard work. Too much.
Especially when I'm drinking beer.
Yeah. So Jaega, we've got a number. Try and get back on track.
Sorry.
No,
scandalous.
It's great. I mean, we've not had a chance to talk about that Untappd thing yet, and I think it was something that we needed to chat about. Actually, we've got a number of things that we want to chat to you about. That are kind of almost like sort of like the big things that you've been involved in over the last couple of years. So first one is obviously the one that I think probably rightly or wrongly most people know you for is your championing of diversity and inclusion in the beer industry. That didn't come about by accident. Obviously, it's obviously something that you care about and that you're very, very passionate about. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of that might have been happening but certainly post keynote speech that you gave at Brewers Congress. Tell us what that means to you and why you still continue to champion it now.
I had an opportunity to talk, and I chose that subject because for me it was obvious. And it was something that is a bugbear, like in my daily work life. Like it happens all the time with like drivers, and it's annoying. So I chose that topic, and kind of after that, everything went absolutely crazy. It was like in the press, it was in the Daily Mail, and it was in this and that. And then I felt like I had to make kind of a choice. Like, do I carry on or do I stop? And I figured, like, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose here. You can only gain. Like, what's the worst that can happen is some people say bad stuff about you on the internet. I can deal with that. Mm-hmm. I'm a big girl, so I just thought, let's crack on. Let's try and do something. So yeah, it's we are getting there. I think I'm most proud of what's happened this year with regards to the Portman Group and getting it on their agenda, and more so getting it within their rule book so that all alcohol is covered across the UK. So that if you are homophobic or discriminatory in any way, racist or sexist, there's now an authoritative body. It's not just us like chatting about it on Twitter. There's an authoritative body who can pull beer from supermarket shelves, or who can literally make a difference in a way that we can't make a difference. So I think that is, but I also don't think we've really felt, it's not really been massively tested yet. So I'm very much waiting for those tests to come. Like, it's easy, like talk is cheap. It's all about actions, and are things going to need tweaking in the future, and that sort of thing. So
although ideally you don't want someone to actually bring something out which needs testing either.
Yeah, in the first place you want to stop it altogether, don't you?
Yeah, but they will.
So
you have to be realistic.
I'm not saying around it, but that's not where we're looking to get to. Ideally, you want people to pick up on all the various messages, direct or indirect, that are occurring now, and not even produce something that requires testing.
Yeah, it's an interesting line to tread, especially doing the work I do with SEBA on the SEBA side, and there's also a lot of like guidance. Then, like, for me, it's clear cut. Like, how to say it? Like, if you cross a line, it's fairly clear. For me, like, it's obvious. But to everyone, some people perhaps need their hand holding a little bit, and we are an industry We're all in this together. So I'm more than happy to work on the CEBA side to help with the guidance, to say to someone and sometimes it does need calling out, and sometimes it's a quiet word in private that says like, oh, well, maybe this isn't okay, and it depends how receptive they are. And honestly, 9.9999 times out of 10, they're like, oh crap, I didn't see that. Let me change it. So as in, I mean, I want this industry to be great, and I want everyone to kind of work towards greatness, and yeah.
Do you feel and see that progress has happened?
Not
just the Portman groups, obviously CEBA and CAMRA have both made statements over the last year as well. Absolutely,
yeah.
And we've seen CAMRA change their approach to festivals up and down the country.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, I mean, all the words coming from the organisations, we're now beginning to see action in actual festivals and them doing it. But I think the moment's really going to come is where these things are being when they're tested, if that makes sense. So when they're prodded, I think is when we're really going to see people's reactions and stuff. But I'm hopeful. I'm glad it's on the agenda. It's not just in beer. It's happening all around the world. It's happening all across the UK in various other industries as well. I think the real thing will come when we have more women who are in the boardrooms, more women who are head brewers, more women that are owners, more women that are at the top of the game, and not just there because they tick a box or because they what have you. I think it's about us all making a conscious effort to try and be as inclusive as we can. If we want this industry to grow, we want this industry to progress, it's about opening doors for others and holding a hand as you lead them through.
So ultimately, you're comfortable being one of those spokespeople.
No, I'm extremely uncomfortable. I think anybody's extremely uncomfortable. I'm not anybody but who I am. I mean, but I would say, and a few people have said this to me, and I see it in other industries. Like, I think it's important. You can only be what you can see. And I think that's important in like the television industry, the what have you industry, whatever, in banking, for example. Yeah. It's important. And I think, I don't know, my fellow colleagues in London who are head brewers, people like Jen Merrick, people like Sophie Durand of Burnt Mill, them just doing their jobs awesomely is like, that's going to inspire loads of people to get into
definitely.
It's going to inspire loads of women to pick up beer. So that's you know what I mean.
Yeah. So it's also, it's not just about being maybe public face, public voice of it. It's also literally these people can do it. They're producing as good as, if not better at times. They're just doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've been trying to work, the thing that's been my focus has been like legislation, like trying to get it so we change the rule book rather than talking about this is bad or this is good. Changing the set of rules we work on. That's what I've been focusing on, and we're there to a certain extent, but we're not there in other areas. So that's what I'm going to continue kind of plodding on with. I don't think it's particularly public facing. I just think it's like a lot of the work happens in the background.
So progress, but plenty more to do.
Yeah, always.
But as you say, the fact that we've now got Portman guidelines that are specifically saying you can't do this is a massive step forward. It's a massive step forward, and also it's a huge amount of work. It's a huge amount of work went into it in the background that no one sees from CEBA. A huge amount of work went in from me. Huge amount of work went in from like Melissa Cole. Like a lot of people working in a non-public facing way in the background. So it's and it's, don't get me wrong, it's really, really important for people to say their opinions so you can gather the public mood. And what was really great about that was because the Portman Group
is an industry group, it will take the opinions of what everyone thinks and implement that. So when we called out and said we need everyone to say what they think on this particular subject, people came and people performed and people delivered. So it's not a few individuals, it's kind of a group. It's the UK brewing scene achieved that. It was everyone achieved that.
And that's also positive for Portman, because there's been plenty of non-positive news about Portman in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one of their plus side moments, isn't it?
Absolutely, and also, as you say, SEBA have had a lead role in that as well, and that can only be good for them as an organisation as well.
Definitely, it gets everyone on side, it shows progressive movement, shows that they're doing something. It's not just talking about it, it's actually words lead to actions.
Mm-hmm.
Talk is cheap.
Yeah.
New beer in front of us, which is the beer that you mentioned earlier on.
Yes.
This is the Passion Fruit Gose.
Yes, this is our Passion Fruit Gose. So this is a 4.8% Gose, made with a lot of passion fruit, a lot of very, very expensive passion fruit. It is a style from northern Germany, so a Gose style, so a salted sour wheat beer, minus some of the herbs actually, and heavy on the fruit. So the fruit is kind of the modern part that's not typically associated with that part of the world, but the Gose, it's very much a base Gose style.
Okay, and this was the one that we referenced earlier, being presented at part of the SEBA Michelin.
This was part of the Michelin style event, yeah. So this is a beer that is it's quite popular, this one, in a way that I was not really expecting. We just made it as a special, as a one-off, and this is now iteration brew. This is brew number 4 in cans. That was meant to be a one-off special. I've just done it again, so I've got some in stock at the minute in keg. So yeah, I wasn't expecting to brew this ever again, and it's happened.
It's been really popular.
It's been popular, so you've got to listen to the people, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah.
If someone says basically brew it again,
then you kind of have to.
Well, let's find out then.
Let's give it a try.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. You get the passion fruit on the nose. You get it in that initial flavour as well. What you also get both on the nose and on the flavour is just that hint of salt.
Yeah.
As well, which is kind of classic to the style, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
And there's a sharpness to it as well.
There is, yes. So the salt really adds a focus kind of to the flavour. And that savoury note is I think it works quite well here.
Yeah, but
it really balances against.
It works really well together at the end.
Yeah.
Again, it's got a really dry finish. It cuts you off straight away on the finish, but that finish is balanced between that savoury and sweetness.
The sharpness really does work for me as a focus. That's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah.
Straight away, I've got the fruit, but the sharpness when you taste it. Quite clean. Is that the word I want to use?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a cleanness to it.
Yeah.
So although there's a lot going on, the passion fruit, the salt, and the sharpness, and basically a bit of that pithy bitterness.
Yeah.
There's a cleanness to it as well.
I can really see why you put this forward to go to a food inspired event.
Yeah.
Because I can see it working with so many different dishes.
Yeah. In fact, I paired this on the new. We were filming the new season of the wine show recently, and it was my job to. I was in competition with the other lead presenter for to pair a beer with Thai food or wine with Thai food. Which one goes better? Obviously, beer wins over wine. Exactly. But anyway, that's kind of the premise of the show, and this beer just worked so beautifully with those with this kind of tropical kind of fruit.
I was going to say there's so much aromatic with Thai food as well.
Exactly.
I can see this definitely working. Yeah, definitely. And you can picture yourself in Thailand on a beach. Having
exactly.
This beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Rather than saying having a mango latte or something like that.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's I think beer reaches places I think wine can't, and I'm sure wine people would probably argue differently with me, but
Fortunately, none of those listen to the show.
Oh.
So you've basically got 100% win rate on this one.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the wrong crowd. It was the literal opposite of that event, by the way. I was saying beer is great, and everyone was like,
Yeah, it's an easier sell on this one.
Yeah.
Have you seen the public's perception of beer change since it's being used more on television, on things like, because obviously it's features quite heavily on Channel 4 Sunday Brunch.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And obviously you're now a beer expert on a wine show. Do you see that the public changing their views about the breadth of styles and flavours and tastes that there are in beer?
Absolutely, and I think there are some real brands that can really take responsibility for that in the UK. So you've got people like Brewdog, for example. Even everyone's heard of Brewdog. So, and then people associate that with craft beer and what have you. Mm-hmm. So no matter what your opinion is about them, they have done so well in terms of getting it into the mainstream and getting it into people's conversations and getting it in, making people talk about it. And that's what we need. If we ever want to get above I think we're at 8% of the market now, approximately. That includes some of the bigger brands. But if we ever want to reach kind of the heights of America, things that they're doing in terms of craft beer is in pretty much every corner shop, right? Or most.
Right? But we've both been in the last few years, haven't we? We both spoke about that.
I was blown away the first time I
going
went to the States
and
walked into a supermarket.
Going to your Safeway.
Yeah.
And suddenly all these beers are like, how big a trolley and fridge have I got back at the apartment? So.
Yeah, but surely the goal has got to be us getting more of the big brewers' pie. Just like their goal is to squish us, our goal has to be to fight back. And we can only do that collectively, we can only do that together because we're too small to do it individually.
And the fact that we're now seeing more beers in UK supermarkets has got to be lending itself to that, and you've been quite heavily involved in that as well, haven't you, from Wild Card's point of view, in terms of what we've seen happen in Tesco in the last year. You've had your core beers go in, and you've had a lot of specials go into supermarkets as well. That I don't imagine that happened by mistake.
Nothing happens with Tesco by mistake. So Tesco employs someone called a barcode administrator, and it's their job to all day look at barcodes and to make sure barcodes are up to scratch. So there is not a single thing that happens in Tesco that is by accident.
Wow. I'm not sure I'd ever want that on my CV.
Imagine if that's your job.
No.
Like it's
barcode supervisor.
It's anyway. So what's really interesting has been all the talk about this. So we were selling to Tesco before this whole thing happened this year. We were selling to them for a year before our bottled range. But then this year, everyone else kind of joined and they started doing cans. And Tesco requested of us to do cans. So we said, you know what, okay, as in if we get this contract, we can afford to buy a canning line off that. That's massive for us. And then all of a sudden we had all this talk about it. And you know what I mean? You know when I've already been managing this contract for a year, and then suddenly everyone wants to talk about it. And I'm fine with it, but it's just it's interesting the role that hype plays in terms of we were kind of doing it under the radar before, and all of a sudden it's kind of conversation.
Yeah, I mean Tesco have had a decent range for the last couple of years. I would say before that we were big advocates of Marks and Spencer's, had quite a decent mixed range and some good selections of beers. Sainsbury's have fallen off a cliff, as there is a bit nondescript. But then I suppose this year, as well as all the cans going in, you had Domo beers on Instagram.
Yeah, really driving.
I mean, driving that engagement on Instagram. I mean, he was on it, properly on it, with new releases on a Monday, and then not just a Monday. This is Tuesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they're all going to be in the shops. And he really, in our world anyway, in our beer bubble, he definitely got known, didn't he?
But you know what this is with Domo, right? Domo's a beer fan. Ultimately, he's not a beer buyer. Well, he is a beer buyer. Yeah. He's literally.
But he's a beer fan first.
He is a beer. He's a beer fan. So as in when we went to see him, like he's there. Obviously, he's negotiating. He's doing his job. But that Instagram, he doesn't have to do that for work.
Oh, no.
As in that's his personal life. That's if you guys were the head beer buyer of Tesco, what would you do? You would pick out your favourites, and you don't spend that much time on Instagram. And I mean, I bloody do it myself. You don't unless you love it. Yeah. So he's been great.
But he's done it really well. He did drive that during the summer when those big releases were coming out. People knew about him because of his Instagram posts.
Yeah. I know. I saw them.
and people either tweeting about them or Facebook about them or messaging on Instagram. he was definitely driving that engagement and driving people saying, I went in there on Monday and they weren't there, kind of thing. Now, you know, he got people enthused about going to the supermarket.
There was a very angry message, I don't know if you saw it on UK supermarket craft beer forum, that was like, I went into the shop, but Domo, it's your fault.
This the fella that did the 15-mile round trip to try and find the beers that wasn't...
Oh, that was tweeted as well, wasn't it?
That wasn't happy that the beers weren't in the Tesco's that he chose to go to.
Oh, goodness me, goodness me. The most difficult part of it is filling up the stores. So, for example, like we're going to have an easier time like this kind of April-y, March time, because we're already in the stores. Because we changed from everything was in bottle to everything being can, it was like us working with them for the first time. So we had to fill all the stores. I'm not saying all the Tesco's, because they're very kind of they're very gentle with you and very supportive of you. So it's one of the reasons why such small breweries like ours has been even to have a conversation with them, because they say to you, okay, you can only supply 200 stores. Okay, well then let's put you in 200 stores. They don't try and overwhelm you with volume, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're really quite gentle in
That's
the
quite
way
interesting.
in the way they work with you.
If they think you can do more, you do more stores. If they think it might be a bit tough at the start,
they start you into it. Yeah, they ease you in with it. Yeah. So Tesco, for example, they must have like 3,000 or 4,000 stores. They have a lot of stores across the UK. So of all the conversation that we're all having about beer is only in a fraction of all of its stores. So beer could be doing a lot more. But they do kind of ease you in, and they are quite gentle with it. And they do kind of, for all the kind of reputational stuff you've heard in the past, it's just not been our experience. Our experience has been they pay on time, our payment terms are ridiculously small, and they pay on time. Like as in, we get good money, good price, and they pay their bills as a customer.
And your beer's in 250 Tesco's. So it's out there.
Yeah,
it's out there.
I mean, our beers are in stores. I mean, it's not even about that's not even part of it. It's about the main importance is they buy something and they pay for it on time. And that's what helps us pay the bills. That's what's allowed us to buy a canning line and allowed us to do the Cashmere Ipa. And allowed us
I was going to say, as a result
we can't do this without that.
You've been able to grow as a direct result of some of that work as well.
Which goes back to Brewdog's starting point, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was getting their beer into Tesco on day one for their their hardcore IPA.
I think that was it was
under the Tesco finest.
Yeah. Mm. So do they have any influence in terms of what they want you to supply?
Absolutely.
So they say to you, obviously, one of the things with the last sort of like tranche that we saw of beers coming in, there were a lot of stouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we've never seen in supermarkets before.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've had Guinness.
Yeah.
And that's about it in terms of if you want a dark beer in a supermarket, you've had Guinness.
Maybe the old Mackesons.
Yeah, but Tesco's were very aware of that, and when they released the last lot of beers, end of August, beginning of September, there were stouts of which you had the raspberry. Chocolate stout.
We had the raspberry chocolate stout. So they're very. So basically So we have with them, we have our core range, all year round, and then we have specials. We only do, and it's something that's our choice, and we've chosen to do this way. We will go to Tesco and say, what beer do you want? They'll say, we want this, and then we say, well, if you want it to that level, it's going to cost you this much. And then we kind of talk about it, and then we settle on a hop rate, and we settle on a deal or what have you. And we will sign a contract that says we can only sell it to them, and we refuse to sell it to anybody else, and we do it exclusive. And that's how we choose to work with them. I know other breweries do it probably differently, where they have stuff in other stores and what have you. But for us, we've got a myriad of different customers in terms of restaurants and theatres and cinemas and bottle shops and what have you. And it's like a juggling act of keeping everybody happy. So for us, it wouldn't really be a good idea for us to come out with 2 440ml cans in the same place at the same time. It'd be a terrible idea. So
it makes perfect sense. But you wouldn't even have it at the tap room?
We don't. No.
So
unless there's been a drama So if you see any ex-Tesco beers in our tap room, that means there's been a drama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so unless there's been a drama,
so barring dramas,
barring dramas, we sign contracts, exclusivity contracts. So we don't even want to get involved in people buying direct from us stuff that's available in the supermarket.
Because we have seen quite a few independent bottle shops quite publicly fall out with breweries over the fact that they were stocking the same beer in supermarkets that they were selling to them. Have you had any issues with any independent bottle shops because you're being featured in Tesco?
Honestly, not massively. So, core range, which is what we've gone heavily into supermarkets with, it's honestly the bottle shops don't really want that anyway. They really want to focus on the specials and the things that are brand new. And so we will make stuff like the passion fruit Gose we've just tried, stuff like the Cashmere and the Smoothie pale. This is kind of what we will send to bottle shops and we'll make for them. But not massively for us. I mean, I can see the problem, and I can see where it would be a big issue. But for us, we've on purpose. When you call us, yeah, you can buy the pale ale if you want to. You can buy the IPA if you want to. But a lot of the price reduction that you see in a supermarket, when people say things like, "Oh, you're making it's cheaper to buy in a supermarket than it costs us to produce," that's just not correct. It's not true. The money saving, the reason why it's cheaper in a supermarket is distribution, and that's simply it. So it costs us to deliver to a bottle shop. It costs us £11-12 to deliver 4 items to any place in London, and that's 4 its. Like the stuff we do to supermarkets, we sell by the pallet. We sell in large quantities, and it gets picked up from us. So it's just a distribution thing. But in terms of people falling out with breweries, we just haven't had that experience. And I'm sure if you're producing the same product, that's an issue. I'm sure.
It seems you're very clear in terms of you know that the core product is going here, but then you've got all these wonderful specials that you're making, which you know are going to appeal to the public that aren't going to necessarily buy their beer from a supermarket, and they're going to go to their local specialist independent shop, and they're always going to want something new.
Exactly, and for example, passion fruit. It's one of the most expensive fruits money can buy.
I think you've mentioned.
I've mentioned it a few times because it hurts. It hurts how expensive it is. But that's just never going to work in a supermarket ever. But it's something that we can do, and we have the freedom to do off the back of having a contract that allows us to play in these other areas. So for us, it's allowed us to do stuff like get a. We now have a packaging manager. Even the concept of that, even having a packaging manager, we used to contract out all of our packaging before. Now everything's in house. So, you know what I mean? It's allowed us to grow. It's allowed us to employ more staff. It's allowed us to pay them better. I don't think it's a question of should breweries be selling to supermarket. I think that growth is inevitable. The question is how do we do this as an industry in a way that is positive or the least damaging to as many areas as possible.
And do you worry about some of the negative side of the supermarket argument in terms of, well, the beers aren't being looked after, they're not cold chained from source to source, they're sitting on warm supermarket shelves?
Mate. Cold chain, that pisses me off because cold chain, I would love our beers to be cold chain. We live in England, for God's sakes. We don't live in America. We don't live in a really hot country or anything in particular. I can count on one hand the distributors. In fact, I don't think I can count on any hand the distributors we work with that do cold chain. There must be like 1 or 2 in the country who work on cold chain. Who is doing that? It's very few. You see what I mean? It's quite a luxurious and it's quite a specifically craft argument to make. There is a major issue with supermarkets and them not having the beers in the fridges. That is an argument, absolutely, and it's a conversation that we have with we have with our buyer continuously. Like when you're doing it, when you're doing it, when you're doing it. The amount of bottle shops I've been into that have beers on shelves. How many bottle shops do you know that have everything in fridges?
There's few. There's very few.
Yeah, very few.
That are 100%.
That are 100%. There's always some in the fridge, and everything else is on shelves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hypocrisy.
I think I'm with you on the frustrating bit about supermarkets, because some of them will have fridges, and you'll go to them and you'll see
absolutely
4-pack of Peroni,
absolutely,
a 12-pack of Bud.
Yeah. And it's been pasteurised within an inch of its life.
Yeah, and you're sitting there thinking you've got some amazing beers on the shelf over there.
Please put them in the fridge.
Can we get
that
them in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thought about moving them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have, but I've been asked to leave when
No, but absolutely. But that sort of stuff is going to come from pressure.
Yeah.
From people they're working with, or the public, or public opinion. And don't forget, for them, this is not a little bit of money. This is like probably tens of millions of pounds to put fridges across all the craft range. This is for them a long-term commitment to the category.
Yeah, if you start putting fridges in, it's not just
it's a
buying the
long-term
fridges. They're on 24 hours,
so
365 days.
This is the issue. Absolutely, But in terms of the distributors and the people we work with that have cold chain distribution,
okay, so you're less
I can literally think of one in the UK. And it's Jolly Good Beer, who does cold chain distribution. He does an absolutely fantastic job. He does. But no one does it.
Less concerned about the cold chain, but you would love it if the Tesco extras started either utilising their fridges or putting fridges in.
I would like it if Co-op did it, because that's down the road from my house. Co-op, the amount of beers I've had in there that are just like sat on a warm shelf in the middle of summer.
And also,
talk about Co-op.
they put them at the top shelf as well sometimes.
I know, seriously.
Seriously. Co-op on the nightmare for that.
Most of my co-ops near me certainly always have Adnams cans in the fridge. So they know that some beer needs to go in the fridge. They're just not quite there with all beer.
Everything is the amount of like warm redemptions, because they do kind of the local co-op thing, don't they?
Yeah.
The amount of them is just insane. But I don't know, with the supermarket thing is tricky. So it's not easy to. It's not an easy contract to manage. It's like it's difficult, and there is public opinion on it this year that for me didn't exist last year. So I'm quite cynical about about some of the conversations that are being had, because it wasn't there for me last year.
I think it's got more polarised, but I think most conversations publicly have got more polarised than in most walks of life anyway. Because we've been talking about supermarket beer since we started.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years, because I think there's been an incremental increase in some of the supermarkets over the last 2 or 3 years anyway, and we've spoken about it, especially say where certain people live. Some of their best access to different and more modern style beers is the supermarket. So our take has always been, if it increases access and open the markets to other people, for me it's rarely a bad thing.
And the thing is, it's like a good. I've never seen our beer in a supermarket shelf before. Genuinely, I live in London. Our beers are not stocked really heavily in the London stores. So for me, it's like when someone sends me a tweet or a picture from a shop in Manchester, from a shop in like Newcastle, we have no chance of our beer being there otherwise. Zero. So for us, it opens us up to new people.
Yeah.
We get to. It's just. Like, I've seriously never gone in and seen it. It's in the big hypermarket stores, only in certain parts of the country.
Yeah, we've had some comments about that.
Yeah. We've got. I certainly see it in where I am in Essex.
Is it the big stores?
Yes, it's the
big hypermarket stores.
Yeah.
It's the stores with space.
Yes.
It's the big stores that has the shelf space for the extra.
Yeah, you're not going to get in the smaller ones. It's like say even like the smaller Tesco's tend to go more generic.
You know what it is?
The smaller co-ops do local.
The smaller Tesco's are the high turnover products. So if your product sells amazingly, you end up in the small ones, yeah. So it's all about, we need to sell more beer.
It's like a badge.
Well, it seems as though we're doing well in selling more beer. I mean, everything's on the up, isn't it? You know, you say that the public perception is getting better, your beer's available in more places. However, it seems the one area where we're still struggling a little bit is in other venues, which is something that you did tweet quite publicly about a few weeks ago, which I think you were on a night out and you ended up in a nightclub and you were quite upset that there was no decent beer on offer. And we took that and we've used that as this week's question.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
Which was, is it about time that clubs, restaurants, concert venues, sports grounds, etc., 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 up their beer game? So we had 636 votes on this one. 94% of people saying yes, it's about time. I think that won't come as a surprise to anybody.
Surprised about the 6%.
The 6% of people that said no,
yeah,
they're quite happy with the offerings that they get in local venues. So, Jaega, obviously you did quite publicly have a bit of a rant about that.
I love that, the word rant.
Yeah, is that genuine? You're feeling that places can do better with their beer offerings, with what they've got available now?
It's just, I find it really frustrating, the fact that you will go somewhere and they will have, especially when you go out to the club in inverted commas, and you go to some really posh place in Mayfair, or in this particular instance I was in Canary Wharf, right? And they literally will have 10 champagnes. They might have 20 wines, a whole range of spirits. And they will have like one beer. It'll be one like mass market beer. And that's it. Just like no one's looked at it. It just gets completely overlooked. And it's I don't know what's with that entire sector. Well, I do know what's with that entire sector, but it's very odd. It's very odd.
I can definitely understand the frustration, because obviously, you know, where we are in the City of London, even without going to a club, there's plenty of places I can go to if it's a work night out, and I can end up somewhere where I may have more than one choice, but it's more than one macro choice that's available to me, and still not cheap either. And I'm thinking, more often than not, I will default to either say a pint of Guinness or maybe a gin and tonic at that point, because I don't want to spend £6 or maybe £6 more on a pint of Peroni, for example. And it's like, well, why would you do that to me? Give me a couple of choices.
You just want an option, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, in this area, they'll charge a lot for anything. Like
yes.
It's an expensive
place.
place.
Well, if I bought water, I'm buying water.
You're buying water, right? It's expensive, and so I don't really buy that it's a margin thing particularly, because
yeah, you can charge more for it. I mean, they haven't had to do anything for it.
Yeah.
Lift the can out.
But it's all they're all tied up with contracts,
yes.
aren't they? They're all going through certain distributors. They're all, but a lot of people miss out.
So what did you do that night?
What did I do that night? So I spirits,
Default.
rum.
Yeah.
Just drink rum.
It used to be when I used
it's
to
not a bad time, is it? Drinking rum.
JD and Coke. Just because
drink rum.
Yeah, you know, you can go for it. Still drinkable. Didn't mind it. Actually, still quite like it.
Yeah, it's at least you've another option.
Yeah.
But then it's the same thing. So I was with my friend Raj, who's just stopped drinking, and I was telling him about non-alcoholic spirits, right? And I was saying, you don't have to always feel left out. You don't just have to drink sparkling water. Like there's a whole a movement in low alcohol, and even this bar with this a whole range of spirits had no alcohol, non-alcoholic spirits, and I was quite taken aback by that. But I just think a lot of the stuff that we talk about, and we can be quite in the bubble of the industry and quite in the bubble of drinks generally.
Yep.
And sometimes we need to kind of get ourselves out a little bit and think, what does the average Joe or average Jane drink when they're out? And it's probably like fruity cider and you know what I mean? There's a lot of drinks that we kind of dismiss as snobby types that a lot of people drink. It's the fastest growing cider in the entire country. Is like sweet fruity cider.
It's the new
It's
version
ridiculous.
of alcohol. So
It's
that's
ridiculous.
all
It's
that's
insane.
happened.
It's insane. But we just kind of as an industry, we just dismiss it out of
course.
hand.
I mean, we've all had those times when we've been out, whether that be a seasonal thing or whatever. And for a lot of people, they're not actually bothered about what they're drinking. It's just give me a drink and make sure there's alcohol in it still. And that's what the place you went to was catering for. But they did have some choices, but it was high margins and it was alcohol. If you did want soft drinks, I presume you had an option of soft drink or water as non-alcoholic.
They had mocktails. Yeah, but
they're not cheap.
Yeah, they're not cheap. But then it's about. I think the question is, if you really want to reach out in beer to a wider range, is how do we bring these people with us? You know what I mean? If we really want to become a higher percentage of the market.
Well, that's an absolute perfect segue into the first comment as well. It's like you read the show notes, which was actually from the guest on the last show, James Calder at JM Calder 101.
James commented.
Yeah, he's commented. He basically said it's a hugely untapped market for small independents. A few like 5 Points and Colonel are doing festivals and restaurant trade well, but on licences other than pubs are 66% of the total of all on-trade licensed premises.
Yeah, he sent us facts, didn't he?
He sent us facts, he sent us a diagram and everything. Clearly diagrams don't work on an audio podcast.
No, but if you look it up, you can find it online anyway.
Yeah. I mean, as always, the Hopinions question is in the show notes. You can click on that question, you can go through, you can see all the responses that people made to this question.
So basically saying that
will be
60% of the on-trade market is other than pubs.
Yeah. So that's all these other venues that we're talking about.
Well, that's a higher number than I would have thought, I have to admit. Because I operate in the world of pubs or tap rooms or bars, the fact that that's 34% of the market I'm only tapping up most of the time.
Yeah.
And there's 66% of the market which isn't really getting impacted by maybe the world we operate in.
Do you know some of our best customers? We've got a really amazing customer who is a curry house, who is a restaurant. They only sell our beer and they buy our lager, and we shift more through them than we will any of the traditional like beer avenues ways, and it's just like like volume is important.
How did you get in there though?
So the way we got in there is physically knocking on doors. So that is someone from the sales team going around being like, do you want craft beer on your menu? And that restaurant will eventually say, you know what, we will have craft beer on the menu for whatever reason. Let's have you in, let's replace our mass market lager brand and let's put you in there. But being the only drink on a menu in a restaurant is a good place to be.
Oh,
it's
definitely.
A good place to be.
Would you have sold it as craft beer or would you have sold it as local beer?
Local.
And
we would have sold it as local beer. They don't care about. Well, they do care, but they do care. I'm not. We would have sold it as we're based down the road. You offer high quality meat that you've sourced locally. You offer high quality fish that you've sourced locally. You've gone to you've gone to get it from Billingsgate or what have you. Why should you not sell like local? You hire locally, you pay well, you should be serving local beers.
Yeah. Lends itself quite nicely to some of these comments here actually. So Justin Mason, that 1970s boy, said yes to this one, but needs to be viewed as a premium product to make it to the highest tables, but it's simply not. Nevertheless, stocking good beer from a local brewery or breweries and advertising it as such may enhance the green credentials of an establishment which did. So, and a couple of others as well talking about that local element. Cahsmere at Katrina's, a new restaurant that's just opened near my house. They have a varied and expensive wine list, including some orange and natural options, but the only beer available are IPA or Pale Ale, although these are from local guys at Brick Brewery, which is a good start. So again, it's great that a lot of people are looking into those local options in terms of the beers that are available to go onto their restaurant menu.
Yeah, and I like that different slant rather than having it as craft local. It's a good foot in the door that way.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Because again, if you come back to Joe Public, they maybe craft probably doesn't really mean anything to them.
Whereas local does.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a local movement outside of any sort of craft beer bubble where we operate in anyway.
Absolutely. There is a general movement in the UK generally for people going towards artisanal, going towards locally made, going towards small batch produced products, and we absolutely need to be all over that.
Yeah, that's the way in, isn't it?
That's us. That's us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As in bread. Look at sourdough bread. It's everywhere.
Yeah, you can't.
Get away from it.
You can't move for sourdough.
Yeah.
Richard Weir at Rich_W27. Smaller music venues are getting it right and more. The Cluny in Newcastle, the Old Laundrette in Durham, for example. The likes of academy venues will never provide anything at macro. Sports venues will probably cite turnover as an issue if bars aren't always open. I think there are some bigger issues there, though, aren't there, in terms of the bigger venues and the sports venues, in terms of sponsorship deals, licensing deals, turnover. Are they actually going to get through?
They also run the bars, do the lines, especially for some of the smaller clubs. So Colchester United, which used to be my local club, was completely tied into Green King.
Yeah. But then that's how they do the deals. They do the deals on purpose to have exclusivity and more importantly to exclude the smaller breweries.
And also the club has already got that guaranteed money written in. So there's a certain amount which they're going to get regardless.
Well, I suppose in terms of football, the two big ones that we've seen this year have been Beavertown putting the brewery into White Hart Lane, and Arsenal now signing a deal with Camden Town as well to stock their beers exclusively at the Emirates Stadium.
Which is quite cool.
So again, it's small steps, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there is the argument around independence and those breweries and their ability to actually buy into those bigger venues and almost tie them into those sponsorship deals. Another new beer before we go any further through these comments.
And we've gone a little bit outside of London on this one.
We have. So, but continuing our SIBA trilogy of shows, or SIBA related shows, this is one of the beers we were going to feature on the last show, but it didn't make it quite in, and this is from Abbeydale Brewery, who are based in Sheffield.
Yep.
But this is from their Funk Dungeon element of what Abbeydale do. So I think this is where Jim lives and creates all these things down
straight from his beard
in the basement. Yeah. So this is Chapter 2 Funk Dungeon Slam Dunk Da Funk. And yes, apparently it was named after I think it was the Five song of the same name back in the day. But this is a beer that Melissa Cole was involved in brewing, and she was specifically involved in this to use flavours that would, again, continuing on a theme that we've been discussing tonight, that would help this beer to be paired with various foods. As well. So this has got in it using the Middle Eastern ingredients as an inspiration. It's been fermented with kefir and barrel aged for 8 months in neutral oak to produce a rounded fruit flavour and soft tartness with a hint of vanilla on finish. It's also got black apricots, black limes and sumac spice in it. So there's quite a lot going to be going on in this, I think.
Not the beer you'd normally go for then, Steve?
Not the beer I'd normally go for. I'm a little bit...
Cheers.
So... with this particular brewery, right? So I had one of their cans, and it's one of those ones that turned up at my house, and I just had no idea where it'd come from. And I cracked it open. It was also from the Funk Dungeon series. It was part of their Bretted series, and it's just honestly absolutely superb, like phenomenal, and unusual in the fact that you don't often see these kind of beers in can. They're really difficult to package. Like it's not easy to package wild beers or beers that have been bretted into can. And they have done something that I haven't really seen before in the UK. I haven't really seen before anywhere really. And I don't think they're getting enough props in terms of some of the beers that they're producing in some of the packaging formats that they're producing it in. Because in terms of technical difficulty, this is as hard as it gets.
If I was in Belgium, I was having this beer in a cafe, it would never ever turn up in a can. It would be from a bottle or a tap. And this is comparable to any of the Belgian type of beers. I think it's it's like a sour dark fruit.
The flavour wise, the first thing I thought of was Rodenbach. It's a little bit like that for me. Maybe not so much on the finish, on the initial flavour. A lot of those dark fruits up front, a lot of fizz going on there, a lot of life. That's what was my initial thought was. Some of that dies off. It's not overly sour. Again, towards the end, it's quite a balanced sourness that it finishes with.
I still think your sour range has changed. So I reckon if we'd done this 3 years ago, you would have found it more sour to your palate.
Yeah, maybe.
I think there's still it's got an underlying sourness rather than tartness to it for me, and it's but again,
there's a real complexity with this beer, and it is. I'm seriously impressed in terms of what this UK brewery is producing. Is of a standard that's very high. That you could take this to Belgium, and you'd
it wouldn't be out of place.
It wouldn't be out of place at all.
And the fact that
and it's that's high praise in itself.
I said I could imagine drinking this outside a Belgian cafe. You've been there. You said Rodenbach struck to mind. Rodenbach is a bit of a benchmark for a lot of people. So you're putting that in the same phrases. So I think it's really, really good, and the branding is very striking as well. So continuing with some of the Hopinions comments from John Rogers at JM Rogers 2000. Given the quality in the local Manchester beer scene, I'm amazed how poor the offer at Manchester City is. Yes, I get the concept of partners dominates, but promoting Manchester breweries on a rotating basis would answer issues around capacity while also promoting Manchester community. And I suppose that's where the comment you already made about Beavertown and Camden with Arsenal and Spurs. So comparable sized clubs have managed to get things in, but they're not. Both of those breweries have had input from macro, haven't they?
Yes, they have. Yeah, so there's a little bit more money that they've got to use.
Yeah, so they can maybe do the capacity and stuff. From Discombobulated at Discombobulated, it usually boils down to sponsorship. Large companies can afford to pay more lucrative sponsorship, and that may include corporate facilities, tents, seating, stillage, etc. It's a shame that organisations like CAMRA or SEBA don't or can't operate as a competitor. Could you ever see SEBA being able to compete or come together somehow as an organisation to get their SEBA members' drinks into places like this?
I think absolutely. And with the BeerX that SEBA does, which is exactly what I think it should be doing, is to get members' beers into places that are too difficult for us to get into as individuals.
So it's where the collaborative, all of you together a bit
are stronger than individually. I don't think the particular scheme that SEBA's doing at the moment is working, but I absolutely feel if that was going to go anywhere in the future, that's where it would be. So things like things where you're competing with big corporate sponsorship.
Okay, so
and what have you.
Where the members can all, so SEBA present the members as a group.
Absolutely, yeah. And you compete with Heineken.
Yeah, so there is, so you would see that as there is a market that SEBA could try and get into by working together. That's brilliant.
I think that's what your trade body needs to be working for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also needs to be a price that the members are happy with and can cope with. So
yes,
that's been one of the big things this year. Has been the price. Has been we need to be able to survive and we need to be able to live and on the prices we get for our beer.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that would be really positive if that came out from it. I mean, a few football clubs are starting to get involved, so it'd be good if this can stretch out a little bit further as well. It'd be great to turn up to watch your favourite football team and have a beer that may not be from your favourite brewery, but one that you thought actually that's quite nice.
Something local.
It'd be amazing, yeah.
From Cask Theology, voted yes, but I kind of have a horse in this race. I've been a Pubco employee for literally decades. I'm glad I found a brand that's big on cask ale. Now, I'm all for all of the above mentioned up in their beer game, but my main concern is this: will it be looked after well?
True, absolutely true. There are so many venues, so many venues that just cannot handle like keg beer.
Yeah.
You need to have a cold space. We had a customer, not naming any names because it's still a customer, who had our beer on draft, and I went in because I was getting calls that it was the beer was fobbing, and I'm like, well, the beer should be fobbing, so I kind of turn up, and the beer was being stored next to the kitchen in the cellar. It was in a really posh restaurant in town. In the cellar next to the kitchen, I kid you not, it was like 40 degrees down there. It was so hot, And I was like, and the beer's been here, and they were buying large quantities at a time, so they got a bit of a discount on the large quantities, but that meant they were going through it really slowly, so it was just sat there for ages in this warm area. And they had this cold room, okay, I want to say cold room, a warm room, that was for their wines, but all the wines were perfectly kept at like, it was like 18 degrees or something. It was temperature controlled. And I said, could you at least put our kegs in the wine room, please? So we can at least have 18-degree beer. And they were like, no, there's no space. You know what I mean? So we just had to take the line out. Like, it doesn't matter how much you want craft beer, your venue and the knowledge there isn't there. So we'll put beer in your fridges in a small pack, but they just weren't set up for it at all. But it's really quite common.
Well, because everyone, obviously, we know that cask can be very temperamental if you don't look after it right. It's actually quite good to hear someone talk about the keg version of the beers. You know, you still have to look after it, you still have to store it, dispense it correctly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because most people will go back to, it's the brewery not producing the beer right, rather than the venue not delivering it right.
These are unfiltered, unpasteurised products. If you think about it like it's milk, right? If you get a bottle of milk and you don't store it in the fridge, what happens to your milk?
Not as good a curdle go off. There you
Quite
go.
simple, really.
Simple.
Isn't it? JT at Al and Metal, marginally, but in my opinion, the pricing is an issue to me. If they're happily charging £5 plus for a 330ml cans of macro, then I dread to think how much they'd charge for anything out better.
Have you been anywhere which has had both options though?
I can't say I have, no.
No, see, that's the thing. I haven't actually been to anywhere which has given me that comparison point anyway.
I was at a festival in Nottingham, a festival called Detonate, I think it was last year, the year before, and they had Brewdogs, cans of Brewdog, and they had cans of whoever else. And the Brewdog was, I think it was £1 more, £1.50 more, on an already expensive can. So the ordinary can was like £5, and that was like £6.50. But I think it's a really tricky option. I think if you're already going to an event or a festival or the cinema or somewhere like that, the markups are huge. Anyway, on everything, right? So it's a matter of spending the difference between $10 and $13. You're already spending a huge amount of money.
Oh, I don't disagree.
You know what I mean? So in a situation, like I said, the difference between a £5 and $6.50.
That links quite nicely to the next comment, actually, which is from craft lover Mark Johnson, at Mark N. Johnson. My answer is different for each one. On the whole, I tend to drink good beer pre-gig, pre-sports match, pre-clubbing, and even pre-meal sometimes, or afterwards. I'm not that fussed about the drink at the event itself, as it isn't what I'm there for. Would it be nice? Yes. Does it bother me? Not particularly. I drink beer a lot. Sometimes it's nice to have an overpriced G&T instead, or a glass of water.
Nothing to add to that.
Mark not sitting on the fence for a change.
No, yeah, it makes a change for him, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the last comment from Guzzler at lagging_boat. No excuse really for every venue not to at least stock punk IPA, which I think it is pretty much everywhere these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't think of too many places where.
I feel like Brewdog's been a hot topic of today's discussion.
They often get mentioned.
In a very unintentional way.
Yeah, it's just you can't help but avoid them sometimes.
Avoid them.
That's the thing. As always, loads of great comments for that this week, and keep the comments coming. Use the hashtag opinions, and you may very well appear in the next section of the show.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
So first up, we had from Neil Hayden at Neil Hayden 73. Fascinating show and great to hear from James. I didn't know a lot about Seba, so really interesting to find out what they do.
Yeah, and I think that worked quite well because he was very informative, but very he was quite sharp with how he speaks. I mean, you know him, Jaega. He's a very good speaker. I think he's done the speaking and presenting bit before, hasn't he? In different walks of life. So I think he came across really well with the information. I know more about Seba than I did before.
Yeah, I think with James in particular, so he's quite an unusual CEO. Like he's quite young. Yeah. He's quite dynamic. He's quite. I think it's an active choice the brewers have chosen for someone a little bit different, someone who's going to represent a wider stretch of the brewing industry, help represent the craft beer industry in particular. So I think it's been an active choice
I think
by the brewers, and I think everyone's quite pleased.
I see it only as a positive move.
Yeah.
And now having met him, we obviously seen a lot of what he'd said in the first few months, got him on the show, spoke to him, had a couple of drinks afterwards as well, and very, very engaging individual.
Yeah, and he and like I said, at the end of the day, he loves beer, and when there's someone you're talking to or someone in that position whose focus at the bottom of it is they love beer and they love to support independence, and only positive things can come from that, really.
Yeah, because he does a bit of homebrewing as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. So he knows beer.
Yeah. So from Gregor at Gregor_J_, love this week's show. Engaging discussion from James, who is very engaging and passionate about beer and is very clued up about the modern beer scene. One of my favourite shows to date.
Oh, some nice feedback.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gregor.
It's very much a theme, isn't it? A lot of people really enjoyed the chat with James. So again, Mark Johnson at Mark N Johnson, great show. As someone who's been openly critical of SIBA, I like the honesty and openness in this and hearing about the new initiatives. Also, James is a very succinct talker. I look forward to what's coming up.
Yeah, there's plenty of positives. So Sean O'Reilly at Uncrulio. I have to say that James struck a fine balance between acknowledging that SIBA has made some mistakes while being respectful of his predecessors.
Yep.
And he knew that things hadn't been quite right before, but he also knew that they had still built up the organisation. It was really well balanced, I thought.
Yep. Another one, Mr. WP at Right Heart Lane. Great pod and SIBA chat. As a casual, it's part of the beery chat that I don't get to hear often. So lots of really nice feedback about that chat with James. And then the other point this week as well was from Ian Hay at Hay, who did make a comment on the previous show that he was drinking a beer from in Argentina.
Yeah.
But he failed to mention what that beer was. So he just listened to the show and he said that we have a point when name checking a Buenos Aires beer, you should include the name. So it was Olafsson Porter. Had some of those honey ones as well, also good.
Okay.
So
it's a beer I'm probably never going to have, but it's nice to know the name of it now.
Yes, at least we've got the name of it now.
Thank you, Ian, for coming back to us on that one.
Well, thanks to everyone again for their comments. Keep them coming. Use the hashtag opinions. So we've got a few more questions to ask Jaega. Should we get a few more thoughts on the Funk Dungeon first, though?
I like what you said about the roadback. I get that. Having read what was on the back of the can and what you said, Jaega, about the neutral oak, I think that's actually lent something to it because it hasn't made it go one way or the other. It's just got the roundness of the wood from it. Again, it has actually got so much going on in there, but you could just sit there and drink it without having to think about it and analyse it.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It reminds me of a curry the next day. So it's like all the flavours have had time to meld together and to work together. So there is a huge amount going on there. So you have that kind of the woodiness of the oak. You've got the spiciness in there. There's some almost like umami notes, some raisiny notes. But I'm not picking them all out individually unless I'm really searching for them. They kind of all seem to kind of cook together and work together as a group. So yeah, thumbs up, Abbeydale.
Yeah, no, well done.
Okay, ready for some questions?
Questions fill my head.
So, from Sean O'Reilly at Uncrulia, how important is Walthamstow to the Wild Card identity? Can you imagine the brewery moving away from its home?
No, and no, we couldn't. So the brewery in its particular location has been everything from the beginning, and it's not like plucked out of thin air. It's because we lived there, because we work there. I'm there every day. It's just Walthamstow, isn't it? It's the home.
Okay. Another one from Sean. He had lots to ask. Last year on Beer with Nat, you talked about your band Hell and Hope. They seem to have gone quiet on Twitter. Are you still playing? How do you find time for other interests in between Wildcard, SIBA and TV work? I think we've covered some of this already.
I think band. I don't want to talk about it right now. It's a sore subject. No. To be fair, our drummer left, and I have actually got a gig coming up in a couple of weeks, but it's not like a band thing. It's just kind of just something about coming up. How do I find time? Lots of early mornings, lots of late nights, like lots of people in the UK. You just work hard, don't you? I think you get some opportunities and you either have to choose to grab them or you choose not to.
From Adam Johnson at maybe_not_a_fab. Do you ever feel that economic restraints can stifle your creativity when it comes to a recipe to brew?
Oh, that's a good question. Not massively. So if you only have there's certain beers that you can produce cheaper than other brews. And it's mainly the beers that don't require heavy dry hopping or heavy fruit additions. They are simply cheaper to produce. So things like, and also things that don't need time in tank. So things like wheat beers, things like porters. So things to a certain extent that you don't have to give. You do need to give like darker beers time, but not the same time level as a lager, for example. So what I would do if I only had a certain budget, I would just look towards budgetable styles. Is what I would do.
So you would
I wouldn't try and produce a double dry hopped IPA on the cheap.
I'd
rather pick a style that tailors that allows to not spend as much money. And with that, you're mainly working with interesting yeast, which is also quite exciting. And quite fun.
I mean, that's a good answer. Wouldn't have thought of that myself.
You obviously didn't think about that when you chose passion fruit.
It's the most expensive fruit that money can buy. So I know I've mentioned it for like a sick time today, but it is
No, it was very good, by the way. So from Paul at UNRCD, and I would echo this next question: can we have an impy version of the raspberry donut stout that is in Tesco, please?
That beer is bloody blighting my life, that beer. So it's a really odd one. So it's kind of come out like a stout, a bit sour. I don't know if you've tried it. Yeah. So it's an odd beer. It's an unusual beer, and it's a beer that is. I'm getting a lot of people coming up to me, and it's a talking point kind of beer. I don't know if I would make it like long term. It's really quite difficult to brew. It's it's a stout recipe. It's basically very complicated to brew. So it has all the complications of a really complicated malt bill. So in order to make it a little bit bready, we've got loads of wheat, loads of oats. I feel like everything but the kitchen sink is in the malt bill. Then we have to add a load of raspberry to it at a certain point in time, and then we have to add a load of cocoa nibs to it. So it's a very kind of complex brew. And at the end of it, if you've ever tried to add a load of any physical material, especially cocoa nibs, in a bag in a 2,000 litre tank, it's really difficult to get it out.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like it produces physical problems. So it's a hard one to brew.
Is it yes or no though? Are we going to see
it?
So read between the lines, no.
I'm
tempted. Would it lend it? All right, put it away. Would it lend itself to being an impy version?
Oh, would it lend itself to being an impy version? Absolutely. As in the style would be absolutely fantastic as an impy version. It's a very Marmite beer. That's what I've learned. It's like it's weird. Like it's an odd beer. I really like it. I wouldn't have brewed it if I didn't love it. But it's definitely, there are some people that love it and some people that probably don't.
So is
don't love
that
it.
a maybe?
No, as in it is possible. I would only do a tiny quantity.
Okay.
It's too difficult to brew.
You'll have to be quick if it does happen.
You have to be quick. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Next up from Bay Beer Reviews at Bay Beer Reviews, question about Wild Card. Do you want to, or are you planning to look at taking investment to grow?
It's absolutely our next step. Our next step is we need a big investor. Like, if we want to, at the minute we are making beer, and we've got more customers and we've got more contracts for it than we can fulfill. So absolutely, the next step is going to be an investor. So it's about hopefully working with someone really nice. So if you're an investor, come talk to us.
Okay.
And is that more in terms of the private investment, or would that be looking to see if
so do you know who our perfect investor would be?
Interested buyer.
Our perfect investor would be, like the perfect investor would be someone who owned a restaurant chain or a pub chain. No, let's go restaurant chain. And they said, oh, we would like to invest £2 million, please. But we also have this restaurant chain, and you could sell some of your beer to our restaurant chain. That would be the perfect investor.
Well, there you go.
So,
that's the most direct answer to that question I could have imagined.
No, so I'm saying, but my point is, these things are very. That is also true. So if you are that, please to call me. But my point is.
I'm not sure we have many restaurant owners listening.
But no, the thing
is, never know.
My point is, these are things that are complex, and it's not always the cookie cutter investment that you would have dreamed of when you begin. So I find it really difficult to be in a situation where you're kind of being quite judgmental against decisions that are made financially, because people have got to pay, people have got to feed themselves and pay for their staff, and it's a lot of pressure, and I can kind of see how people make decisions.
And we've spoken about it before.
So, I mean, is what it is.
So, last question, and you may have noticed as you were going away for the weekend, this person had a stream of questions, which would have blocked
time. Timing was shocking on this occasion.
From Miles Lambert, at Miles Lambert, and this is the shortest of his questions, I do believe, as well. If you could make one change to the beer industry, what would it be?
Oh God, one change to the beer industry. And that's really difficult. You know what? I'm going to be brutally honest, mainly because I'm like 5 beers in. If I could, I would like to see more of a focus on beers that have real merit. So, as in breweries that may not necessarily have all the hype in the world, but they make like absolutely superb, fantastic, faultless beers, and they may not have all the branding and all the what have you. Yeah.
So you want to see them get the recognition
I would like
you
to see
feel
them get
they
the
deserve.
recognition that they deserve.
Okay, good answer.
Great answer. Jaega, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
giving up your time and for bringing some beers along for us to try as well. If people don't know already, where can they find information about Wild Card?
They can find information about Wild Card on the Wild Card Brewery website, wildcardbrewery.co.uk, or Twitter or Instagram.
Excellent, and there'll be links to all of those in the show notes.
Yeah,
so
sure.
if people that can't be bothered to search them up, they can just click through directly from the show notes. What have we got coming up next time?
Well, we're still out and about, Steve.
We are. We've got at least another show where
We're not back in the
on
studio.
location.
So we're going to go and speak to Mr. Chris Hall at Howling Hops in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, and this is going to be at their tank bar.
Well, I hope so. I want to sit in front of those shiny tanks drinking beer from the tank. No, actually lying underneath the tap at the tank. Even
We'll see what they've got on. They might know we're coming and turn half them off. Who knows? But as always, there'll be an opportunity for people to ask questions of Chris. So if you have got any questions that you want to ask him, make sure you use the hashtag Hopinions, and we'll find that. We'll obviously put a shout out on Twitter a week or so before as well.
Definitely.
For anybody else that wants to ask questions. And I think with that probably draws this evening to a close.
Thank you very much, Jaega, for turning up. And after your weekend away and being at the brewery and coming here tonight.
And doing everything. I'm surprised you've not got your juggling balls with you. as well.
Just very sleepy eyes.
Which is fine for podcasting, it's no problem.
Because no one can see that. No, that's been brilliant. Thank you so much.